So I got something I watched the other day. It's a documentary on the Beach Boys.
Gotcha.
Now, growing up in California and I love the ocean. We have a lot of oceans here in North Idaho, but I absolutely love the ocean. It was hard to keep me out of it. So the Beach Boys really, they really spoke to me when I was probably 7 or 8 years old, when I got my hands on their first album, and I really enjoyed it. And so I listened to Endless Summer probably 1,000 times. And that was about my probably my favorite album for a couple of years when I was a kid. And so I've always been interested in them. Now, I know that nobody in the band surfed except Dennis. Dennis Wilson, the only one guy. They all had tried, but only one really was a real surfer.
Right.
That type of guy. So anyway, the documentary was on. I think you can find it in several places. Just a second.
Yeah.
I'm dying.
Yeah. All right. Basically, kind of like a behind the scenes kind of overview of the Beach Boys and their story. Kind of the trials and tribulations they went through. So it sounded pretty interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was good because it goes through what a lot of bands end up going through in the music industry, and this is a long time ago that this happened, of course, to them. But it basically goes through, like Brian Wilson, the older brother, because it was a trio. Their older brother, he was the musical architect, right?
Okay.
The composer,
The talent.
and well, I mean, they were all talented, I think, in their own right, like because they all had to sing that.
Sure.
Hit these pitches that he came up with in these harmonies, but he
talent
was the composer. The musical composer, composer talent, composition,
maybe talent's
composition.
the wrong word. The creativity, the creative one, right?
Yes.
The muse, whatever you want.
Yeah, there you go.
What do you want?
Yeah, he had a real strong vision for what he wanted out of them.
Nice.
And their father was the manager, and they ended up
heard this story before.
Yeah,
Right.
Going on, exploding, going on tour, and Brian. He hated being on tour. He couldn't stand it. He didn't like being in the spotlight. He liked being at home with his family, and he liked creating in the studio.
Right.
Which is why they ended up working with the Wrecking Crew, who are famous. You should look them up if you don't know who they are. They've been on. I don't even know how many albums. A lot of albums that they did studio work for.
Oh, gotcha.
And they said that he was the best composer to ever work with. That he really led them, and they've worked with everybody. I mean, everybody. They wrote stuff for Rolling Stones, Beatles. I mean, everybody.
Huh.
And they just said he was amazing. So
Right.
yeah, it's pretty interesting hearing their side because they really get into the Wrecking Crew in there too. And there's actually a documentary on the Wrecking Crew that maybe we'll
So
talk
that was
about
a
at some
group
point.
that worked with them, or what?
Yeah,
Not getting too far in a rabbit hole.
it was actually not. I spelled it like Motley Crue. I should have asked. Let me ask Rock what albums are on.
Yeah. So this was like a for hire kind of.
Yeah, studio musicians.
Studio musicians, gotcha. That makes sense. What interested me about the story that I heard about was their connections with with it's scary, but the Charles Manson connection between them and the Beach Boys and them, and how close they came to having.
Yeah, they actually did a Charles Manson song.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Wow, I
So
didn't know that.
yeah.
I knew there was a connection, like they played together at one point or for a little while, but I didn't know that they actually played a song.
Oh my gosh, what was the song name? I can't remember the song name. So
you know better than me. What's kind of a breakdown of the?
So yeah, what happened is Dennis Wilson, the middle brother, he was the surfer, and kind of the liked to indulge.
Right.
And
hippie
and
go
party.
lucky.
Yeah, and he was a real partier out of the group. The rest of the guys were pretty straight, and narrow when it came to that stuff. But he was not. He was a traditional surfer musician.
Right.
Well, he started playing with Manson, and thought that Manson had some talent. And he said, "Yeah, I'll introduce you to Terry Melcher, who was their producer at the time, who was Doris Day's son."
Crazy.
And and so Terry Melcher met him and was like, "No."
Yeah.
Like, no, he had a weird vibe from him. He didn't like him.
Right.
And it's interesting because Manson ended up taking Melcher home and dropping him off.
No.
And a Melcher called his mom and goes, "Yeah, I just met this guy." And she goes, "Hey, dude, you got to move out of that house. You can't let that guy know that you live there,
Yeah.
especially after turning him down. It's a problem." So Terry
Right.
Melcher did. He moved out and he rented his house out. And he happened to rent his house out to Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate.
Oh.
So, and Manson had come over after he'd moved out.
If you don't know the story behind that whole story, it's a gruesome,
Yeah.
gruesome story. That's the whole reason why all of those folks are in jail.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go look it up, get all the particulars. But man,
There's a
that's
connection to the other house that was hit too.
really.
Yeah, that's my
Fail.
my alarm. Sorry. There's a connection to the other house that was hit as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, they had said that the Manson murders were random and stuff, and I think this kind of proves that they weren't. So Manson had, like I said, he came over and Polanski told him, "You got to go. Get out of here. Like that dude's not here. Get out." And
Maybe
apparently
that's
took it personal.
laid the seed for what happened later. Maybe.
Yeah, who knows?
Crazy.
Manson was nuts, right?
Yeah,
but
right.
a lot of people think he was part of. He was in the federal system when MK Ultra was going on.
Yeah, I was about to say MK Ultra.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's another rabbit hole. A whole bunch of stuff.
He
We'll
also
have to
talks
save
about using those techniques with his family.
that. We got to save that for another day. Talk
Yeah.
about that. That's another one.
Yeah,
Ooh, boy.
for sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was super cool. It went into that. It went
Nice.
into Dennis Wilson passing away sadly. Right, he drowned. Going to get his fiance's jewelry off the side of the boat. Don't drink and swim in the ocean. By the way, it's a bad idea.
Bad idea. So, what was the name of the documentary?
Oh boy, that's a really good question. I think it's just Beach Boys documentary.
Beach Boys documentary. Yeah, if you look it up, I'm sure
you'll find it. Yeah, it's relatively
Pretty
new.
recent. Yeah.
And like I said, it was really good. I really enjoyed it. And it's their father, who was their manager, ended up suing them, and he sold off all the rights, took all the cash, sold off all the rights to their songs, and gave them nothing. And he sold it for $700,000.
I mean, for now, that's a lot of money now, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
Back then, I'm sure that was more than
It was a lot of money then, but it's nothing compared to what they were really worth.
My goodness.
And I mean, considering how big that they were, and something else I learned in there was when they were talking about the Beatles, which I had heard before. Beatles are not. I know everybody loves the Beatles, and I'm not a fan really. Not that they are terrible or anything. It's just
there's a couple songs.
They were too tailored for me. That's what it felt like. I know I'm like, hey, I like the Beach Boys, right? And I don't like the Beatles, but they nothing felt raw about it to me. And I found out that they didn't perform a lot of the songs that they recorded in studio because groups like the Wrecking Crew did a lot of their songs in studio, and they were unable to perform those songs. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, interesting.
I've always liked raw, I guess.
Yeah.
So real quick, some of the Wrecking Crew, some of the bands they worked with: Beach Boys, Monkees, Phil Spector, The Byrds, Simon and Garfunkel, Mamas and the Papas, Frank Sinatra, Nancy, Glenn Campbell, The Association, Everly Brothers, Partridge Family,
right.
Captain and Tennille,
all over the place.
Yeah,
wow, that's cool.
62 to 72. So I mean,
all right,
pretty cool. Yeah, they're super famous, and like I said, I think there's a documentary on them as well.
Yeah.
But,
so check out the Unnamed Beach Boys.
Yeah, I guess I could figure it out. Right?
Yeah, it's all right. Just giving you a hard time. Clickety clack, clickety clack.
Oh, dang it. It's going to tell me all about that.
Yeah, that's all right. So,
let's see if he gets that.
Yeah. Pull it up.
It's like, Doc, here's the documents you wanted. The Beach Boys. Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
the
Beach Boys. The Beach Boys.
2024. Yeah.
That's a pretty creative name there. Yep.
Yeah, they had to search real hard for that.
Yeah.
I guess you can see it on Disney Plus if you're crazy enough to have a subscription there.